Do 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 do. Let's see. Boom. Can anybody hear me? Mic check, mic check, mic check. All right. Hey, Jasmine. Okay. Let's get it going. What do you want me to talk about, or do you have any specific questions or clarifications? Let's get it going. Let's see, where are you at? 4:15. I'm looking into my laptop, but I have my desktop, so that way I could look at specific questions, if you guys have anything specific, or I could access uh, like where certain things are in the Moodle page, and so that's why I keep looking there. So if you go to one of your first circle lectures, that's where all of this stuff is going to be clarified. It's going to be clarified that this written on the board is this rotated so that you can see it. So in other words, I start off with the neck. If you go back and listen to the neck lecture where I explain the concepts of the circles, your neck is somewhat circular, your wrist is somewhat circular, your knee is somewhat circular, my tummy is somewhat circular, everything's somewhat circular. So if I take my neck and I make a circle, right? What's the front? The anterior is in the front, posterior in the back, right side, left side. And so I can't teach you the circle flat. I have to rotate it so that it fits on the chalkboard. So it's as if you're looking at it, and I communicate all that on the circle. This is the anterior part. So even though it looks like it's superior to the board, it's anterior because you'd imagine me laying down so that you could see this cross-sectional circle. And my anterior, my front, is not from the room's perspective. It's from my perspective. That's some 310 stuff, right? With perspectives. So that's why with the circles outside of the scapula, anterior is the top part, posterior is the bottom. But the reality is that because it's my neck, it's my circle, anterior is front, posterior is back. So so anterior muscles cross in the front, so therefore they pull in the front. Posterior muscles cross the back, therefore they pull in the back. So for your cervical vertebra, let's see, where's my chalk? So if this was your cervical circle, there's your bilateral axis separating front and back. Here's your AP axis separating right and left. So if you have a left sternocleidomastoid muscle right here that has an anterolateral crossing, it sits in class in the front and it sits in class on the left. So therefore that muscle pulls in the front. And because it's on the left side, it pulls to the left. So it has an antero left lateral pull, meaning that it's a cervical flexor and a left lateral cervical bender for this muscle. Then the last thing is its rotation function. So the left, as I mentioned in the lecture, your left sternocleidomastoid pulls your left ear forward. So it's a right transverse cervical rotator. So that's why we have the rotation circle there for the polar axis. How is it trying to spin you? Okay. So the left sternocleidomastoid is a cervical flexor because it crosses anterior, left lateral cervical bender because it crosses left laterally, and right transverse cervical rotator because it's pulling your, not literally your left ear, but a process, a mastoid process that's really close to your left ear, pulling your left ear forward so that it's pulling in a direction of right transverse cervical rotation. Okay. Also, the question about the equation. There's a lecture. Your welcome lecture. Let's see, 415. Pre-class welcome. It's the first video on your biomechanics Moodle page, and that's where I review the A plus B is equal to C agonistic group, motion, contraction. And then I explained that 415 is about just putting specific muscles into those groups. Because, in 310, we spend a lot of time on groups. What does it mean to be the elbow flexors, the knee extensors, hip flexors? We did a lot of that in 310. Biomechanics is just the knee flexors are what muscles? Well, those muscles that pull in the direction of knee flexion, your gastrocnemius, your semimembranosus, your semitendinosus, your biceps femoris, your popliteus, your sartorius, your gracilis. That's all it is. So it's really just a continuation of 310. That's why 310 is so important as a prereq for this class. But in that welcome video, I said, guys, y'all may need to go back and review some of your 310 stuff before the first lecture. That was posted, let's see, a few days before we got started, July 3rd. So that was posted July 3rd, and classes started July 6th. So I gave you that weekend to refresh the 310 concepts so that the first lecture on the cross section was more understandable. That was my intent. Thank you for that question, by the way, or clarification. And again, for anybody joining, I'm looking back. I have my laptop here, and then I have my desktop there where I can pull up information. Okay, anything else? Okay, now what I do want to add, even though it's not a question, what I do want to add is that the final is not cumulative, and the new information is really not related. I say not related. It's not a continuation of the muscles. The specific muscles and their function is like a capstone to 310. And the next part is more of the mechanics of levers and how muscles can create levers and moments and torques and Newton and just it's very different. So my point is that maybe the first test wasn't your cup of tea. Don't spend a lot of energy trying to relearn what you're not going to be tested on again. Does that make sense? In other words, if you got some stress and energy to spend, start watching the videos. I already posted today and tomorrow's lectures. Let me double check. So you have today's all set up and you have tomorrow's. So if you got some extra time, you could already start kind of watching tomorrow's lectures. Keep in mind, instead of chopping it up, because all of this stuff kind of flows together, I posted all of the support materials. Let's see. So your last Thursday lecture, you have human movement strategies, a Word document. Then movement strategies for chains and rehab, you have a separate. And then, so this is today's lecture. The last file is called kinetics and kinematics. Here is the rest of your support materials for class. So right there, you have everything else you're going to be accountable for. So this weekend, tonight, tomorrow, you could start kind of delving into that stuff. And look, man, maybe the person who made a 96 on the first test, maybe this next stuff isn't their cup of tea. And maybe some of you that did real poor on the first test, maybe this next stuff is more of your liking. Okay. So my point is what's done is done. Take a deep breath, let sorrow have its day. And when it's done, life will go on. Use that energy to focus on what you can control and what you have control over. And that's the material for your final. Once again, your final is not cumulative. So reharness that energy and that effort and that concentration into the new stuff. Does that make sense? Yay. Okay. Well, as always, if y'all have anything y'all need or clarifications, y'all let me know. Other than that, you guys have a wonderful day.